My name is Christina Sass. I'm co-founder and president of Andela. Delighted to be here at ASU GSV to talk about the future of work and the fact that the future of work is distributed. We started Andela in 2014 to basically solve the huge labor gap that we saw that existed among software developers and also harness the incredible technical talent that we saw across the continent of Africa to help growing companies build better products and build them faster, and also to be able to build a next generation of technology leaders across the continent. And so, to the point about distributed work, I'd like to start by telling you a story about Tolu Komolafe. Tolu is a 24-year-old Nigerian young woman that we met who lived on the outskirts of Lagos. And she has a 4-year degree in computer science and engineering, but when we met her, was unable to find work. She applied as part of cohort 2 in Lagos. We had 2,500 applications to that cohort, whittled down to about 75 people that we interviewed, and then we brought in about 50 for an in-person 2-week, we call it boot camp, but it's really the final phase of interviews for us. And Tolu led her class, both technically and in her team skills and soft skills. So we hired her, and about 3 to 4 months later, she was actually leading that same boot camp exercise that she was a part of, that was her final stage of selection. And I know that because I was a member of this boot camp. It was our first all-female boot camp in Lagos. I got my butt kicked in software development by a young Nigerian woman, a very humbling experience, which you should all do at some point. So met her unemployed in July, leading boot camp that following December. And then in February the following year, we placed her, we deemed her ready to be put on an external partner company engagement. So to be a full-time software developer for a growing tech team. We placed her with Everplans. They're a high-growth startup out of New York. And she began that engagement about February 2015. That summer in July, Everplans called us and said, Tolu and her colleague Jesmine are so integral to our team that we need to bring them to New York. We need them here on site for a huge product launch that we're doing. So we did that. Flip slide. We did that, and they came to the States in July. Sorry, advanced slide. Not working. And that really solidified the relationship with Everplans. So Tolu is, to this day, still a team lead in that company. She is managing 4 of her other colleagues on that tech team, and she's actually reports directly into their CTO. So that basically happened within the span of 1 year. She is not only a leader in the Everplans tech team, but she's a leader in our company in the fact that she is entirely self-driven. She knows that to be a great software developer, she constantly has to level up her own skills, is utterly dependable, is looking for leadership capabilities over and over again. And she has been globally recognized for her work as a software developer. Advanced slide, advanced slide. Sorry, one back. This is her on Fareed Zakaria's show with my business partner, Jeremy Johnson. She's, I don't know why the clicker's not working here. Yeah. Yep, this one right here. Okay, I'm just gonna say advance. Is that okay? It's just not working. So the point of this is that you should never have to settle for the software developer that's just down the street from you if they're not actually the best software developer. The point of distributed work and the future being distributed is that everyone is in need of software developer talent, and you just shouldn't have to settle either because you can't find or keep that tech talent or because it might be halfway across the globe. Next slide. So we believe that distributed work connects teams and that it helps the entire global workforce, especially in software development. Next slide. So why is this important to all of you all? Because my guess is that you have experienced a shortage. We see 5 open jobs for every 1 software developer. This is in the US alone. Last year, 1.3 million jobs went unfilled at a huge cost to global companies. Next slide. So, and why is this also important? Because engineers, this rare thing that we all need, are already organically moving in the way of distributed. You see 64% of teams already operating this. fashion, and since 1995, a 300% increase. Today, we see about a 15% increase just in the last 2 years of people moving to entirely distributed. Next. So the opportunity that we saw was a massive pool of untapped tech talent, springing up tech ecosystems all over the place, and meanwhile, in the United States alone, 1.8 million tech jobs. And so we started out with a very, very simple hypothesis. Next slide. That brilliance is evenly distributed, and that we would be able to look in those budding tech ecosystems and find crazy talent. And just to kind of draw a fine point on that, in Tolu's cohort, we barely had a website, much less a dialed operation for people to know who we were. We really did have 2,500 applications, and we used basically a problem-solving logical reasoning test that was a proxy for IQ, for software developers. And the testing service that we used called us and said, what is this job? We've never had 2,500 applications for any job. And by the way, you have 48 candidates in this pool that we believe to be in the top 2% of IQ in the world, globally. And that was without a reputation on the continent. So our first hypothesis was proved out very quickly. Next slide. This is our model. We go out and look at hundreds of different indicators for what makes a great distributed team member and recruit them. Then we shape them. We're really clear about what we can teach and what we cannot. And spend about 6 months getting them ready for external client work. And then we integrate them. We integrate them as full-time developers in growing tech teams all over the world. Next. So, in that recruitment process, we started out in the early days with thousands. Now we've had over 90,000 applications. And my major takeaway from this is we've basically gotten really, really clear about the fact that a great distributed team member is different. It is a different thing that you're looking for. You cannot display the same skills and say that you're just going to work in the way you always have and then go do it from somewhere else and be great at it. It's a whole skill set that you have to want to be good at it, and you can actually recruit for it. So we've done that now. We've put out challenges to technologists across the continent and have engaged with now probably about 20,000 different people on a regular basis. And then in terms of formal applications, we've hired about 720 software developers out of 90,000. It's a 0.77% acceptance rate. And just a little bit of self-deprecating humor. Next. Let's assume that I'm a fairly decorated individual before starting this company. What you're looking at here is the top 10% of one class, one application class, and then all these different little colors are different indicators what we think would make a great distributed team member. So in the top 10%, it is basically utterly questionable if I would be hired by my own company today. Next. So once we recruit, we spend 6 to 7 months putting developers in actual product teams where they have the pressure of building product, sometimes with a fake client. We'll set them up basically with business improv groups and say your boss walks in and says, I need the logo changed everywhere that the logo exists. I need it done in the next 3 hours. And our developers then have to work out, how are you going to deal with that problem? How are you going to deal with it with great attention to detail? How are you going to harness your team? You're going to let them know through email? You're going to let them know through Slack? How do you ensure that that very specific new logo is exactly the quality that your boss wants? And they practice that over and over again in product teams, and then they practice it with the products that Andela needs to build. So they are a part of our engineering team before they're deemed ready to be put on external clients. Next. Once we do this, we fully integrate them as remote, distributed, full-time team members in companies like high-growth startups like Gusto and Headspace, and then also leading enterprise companies like Viacom and Microsoft and IBM. Now, when we say integrate to a team, I just want to drill a fine point on why distributed is a whole new skill set. When a developer prepares to integrate into a new team, we would give them the following level of granularity. What does your first day look like integrating into that team? Will there be a meeting? Are you going to be asked to introduce yourself? How long will you be needing to speak? Have you practiced that with yourself? Have you practiced it with another person? Have you practiced it through a remote channel, like a video call? Do you know how the people on the call integrate, how they relate to each other? Are you making sure that your computer is set up such that you can look them in the eye and you are not backlit? They need to show expertise in every single one of those skill sets before they would be integrated into a company. And we learned a lot. Next slide. We've learned quite a bit about how to be great at distributed. It does take this level of structure and clarity. It takes being utterly dependable when you're working in different time zones. It takes a commitment for other managers across companies to truly be able to push decisions down. And we see that this is working. Co-location has no impact on team effectiveness at Google, but it has to be done right. My point is, distributed is the way of the future, but it's also an entirely new skill set that you have to commit to being good at. And let's take a look at industry leaders who are already doing this. Next slide. So we see Slack, Trello, GitHub, Skype, and just to put quite a fine point on how obsessed our software developers are with these tools, I wanted to show you a fun video.
Remote first, notified by integration. Better yet, they both integrate. Progress of projects in the place you communicate.
If favorite channels had a new product demand, add a new task from Slack with my Trello/command.
Notified, possibly one card changes status.
Blue icon updates the team when we doing damage.
The kind of combo never seen before. And now we rarely use email anymore.
All right, thank you. So these are our developers being obsessed with two great tools, Slack and Trello, and creating this spoof on a famous rap song called Black and Yellow. And so this went viral within the companies of Slack and Trello. The CEO of Slack emailed us and said, we just showed that at our entire team meeting for our entire team. And 2 weeks later in the mail, we got 300 pairs of Slack socks. At which point our developers put on these socks, made a remix of this video and put it out. And this is the power and enthusiasm of software developers for a distributed team. Next slide. So, is this really working? We have to date 155 different partner companies in 55 different cities globally. We've increased our team to be 1,000 total, 700 of which are our global software developers. And we find this to be just the way of the future. Whether you're having trouble today or not, if you want to and need to scale an engineering team, you're going to have to look for software development talent everywhere. 5 open jobs for every 1 developer will never fill it with a number of software developers in the States alone. And so if you are looking to solutions to this, Andela is one of the ways that we simply remove the challenges, we remove the barriers for both extraordinary talent and you to be able to grow and thrive. And so we believe this to be the future of distributed work. I'm here for the next 3 days and would love to talk to you about it. And you can put on the final slide. We believe that there's a huge possibility for growth across the continent, anywhere that there's a city of 1 million or more. And now the final slide. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.